there is a problem in the world, and that is the bravery deficit. And it leads to an unequal representation of women and men in STEM and STEAM fields. I believe this battle of stereotyping is a solvable problem. But solving this thorny issue requires the efforts of many mentors, including parents, of empowering young women to get involved in STEM subjects. Not only because a balanced number of male and female scientists is providing scientific problems and questions to be viewed from several different angles. Also because that is one of the fastest areas in which young women can gain economic independence. I am of the opinion that it's time for us mentors to take that step forward into the world and voice our thoughts and experiences for young people to realize that this narrow vision of boys being better than girls in any scientific field is no fact at all. I am your host, Maria Anna van Driel, and you are listening to The Next Truth where science and myth meet. And this week, I'm speaking with the marketing content manager of CoderZ, an innovative online learning environment where kids can learn how to program real and virtual robots using a 3D robotic simulation. Ashlynn Schindler-Kota, who is a driven leader with experience in education, administration, grant management, and an expert in STEM education. Ashlynn, welcome to the radio show of The Next Truth, where science and myth meet. I read your LinkedIn profile, and it says that you are a highly respected as a creative, empathic, and positive educator, an effective communicator and motivator with the proven ability to partner effectively with educational leaders, staff, the community. When I read further, I see that you are a subject matter expert in STEM education, grant writing, instruction, lesson planning, curriculum analysis, and process evaluation. And this goes on and on. This is amazing. This is seriously impressive. Do you still have some spare time left working as a marketing content manager for CoderZ?
Surprisingly, I'm actually have more time than I ever have. It's been quite a change adjusting from being a classroom educator. Usually I would be filling my summers with all of these extra things that I was doing in terms of grant writing programs, environmental programs, international programs. And so since I haven't had the summer vacation, I have to actually just do one job. So it has been a little bit of a change.
What is your daily day look like as a content, a marketing content manager for CoderZ?
So my job still is what I have always loved to do, which is creating resources for educators, science educators in particular. And that's what I get to do. I get to manage the creation of content that's relevant to educators, resources for them, activities for them, support creating a cohesive community in which they do feel seen and supported by CoderZ.
So what you are saying is that you are, well, slightly trying to change the way we teach today.
Absolutely. The change is happening, but with education, it can be a generational change. So it takes time. So in encouraging hands-on community context, problem-based learning, it takes time for that change to come in, but the easier you make it and the more resources that are provided for all teachers to implement it in their classroom and feel confident in doing so, the sooner that change will happen.
Yeah, because I read the website of CoderZ, and mostly it is for young people to get involved with coding. Um, what is the difficulty in changing mentors or teachers' way of thinking? What is the most difficult issue, the most nagging issue that you find?
I honestly think it's confidence. As a whole, the education field tends to be what is referred to as a pink collar job. So pink collar jobs are jobs that are kind of funneled towards females specifically. And you see with those fields that they tend to have a lack of respect. One of my examples of this is in the United States, doctors, the medical field, they tend to be male. And so people pay them really well. The level of social respect is very high. And people say, oh, well, obviously it's a doctor. You're in charge of lives. You save people. You keep people healthy. Clearly, this is
Yeah.
deserving of that pay because it is such an important job. However,
Yes.
if you look at Russia, the medical field tends to be female dominated. You have females as doctors. As a result, the pay is lower. The social respect that goes along with it is not nearly as high as it is for medical professionals in the United States. We're also seeing this in biology as a professional field where it previously was male dominated, highly respected, high pay. It's becoming to be more female dominated. And as a result, you're starting to see it be called a soft science. You're starting to see respect go down. You're starting to see pay go down.
What do you think that is the cause for that? That's way of thinking that a female doctor, a medical doctor, is, well, lesser. I don't want to say that word. I think that is not a correct word, but in a way, than her male colleagues. What do you think that is the difference? Why do people think like that?
I think it's a devaluing of the value of female labor, frankly. There's a lot of female labor that is expected to be performed without financial compensation, childcare, care of the elderly. Females tend to get kind of dumped on in terms of care of an elderly parent. And so those fields, I believe, tend to come along with that same social stigma of a woman is doing it, so therefore it's not as valuable as labor being done by a man.
It is a bit odd to think so, because the medical sector, the medical science, is for caring, is for health. So you would expect that female scientists, female medical doctors are being respected more, or at least the same as their male colleagues. Because it is a caring, it is an odd thing. What influenced you to get involved with STEM education, and later on as being the marketing content manager of CoderZ? What influenced you to become that?
So I actually, up until, so in the United States, we have high school, which is your pre-college experience, your secondary education. So the month before my secondary education career ended and we were moving to post-secondary, I had not decided to go to college or to go to university. It was May and we graduated at the end of May. I was fully planning on being a heavy equipment operator and driving bulldozers for a living.
Okay.
Yeah, that was my
Strong
plan.
woman.
So that was my plan. And I, at the last minute, I had a change of heart. I was working with my high school guidance counselor in her office, and I saw what she was able to do for others and the help she was able to give. And I asked her, like, how did you get to where you are? And she told me, be a teacher first and then come back and get your counseling license. And so I enrolled at my local university that day, and I changed my plans very suddenly and decided to go to university. I started off as history education because that had always really been my passion in the secondary environment. However, as I went through my post-secondary career, very early on, I had a science course, and I remembered essentially like, oh, I really enjoy this science. And also, I want a job someday. So in the United States, at least, history or social studies education, it tends to be a little more difficult because it's not quite as high need of an area as science or science secondary teachers. So I switched to science, and I really found my love and my passion in it.
So you can say that this woman was, well, in a way, your role model.
A little bit, yeah. My role models really were female teachers. My guidance counselor, and the reason I started as history ed is because I had a very, very strong, very powerful history educator in my life that I took all of her advanced placement classes and spent a lot of time with her, and she was really the reason that I can do this, I can absolutely do this.
Do you think that, or perhaps you experienced this during your job and talking to people and explaining, trying to change the way we teach these days? Do you think that female scientists, future scientists, are more in the need for a role model than boys do? Or do you think, well, no, that is equal?
I was speaking recently with the STEM director of Texas, which is a very large state in the United States, and something that she expressed while they were designing their STEM program, she went on a listening tour, and she expressed that she got the complaint a lot of times from parents that there were tons and tons of programs out there for coding for girls, but there weren't really equivalent programs for boys. So I'm not sure about how much of that is confirmation bias or just a kind of a counterculture kind of backlash almost. But everyone needs role models, no matter who you are. Everyone needs role models. And the more equal the representation is, the more of a chance everyone has the opportunity to see themselves represented in a field, showing them that it's an option. I know that something that I feel very strongly about is, in the United States at least, you tend to get white educators in minority majority districts. And as a result, you tend to, it's very difficult for students of color to see themselves being a teacher someday. I had one student 2 years ago who within the first couple of weeks that I had her, she very much so had organizational skills. She was great at kind of working her group through their work. She was very gifted in math. She had all the makings of being a great teacher, frankly. And I told her that she should look into education because she really, really had the spark for it. And she was so shocked because she had never heard that from anyone. She was Black, and she was loud and exuberant and enthusiastic. And I think as a result, that had resulted in some behavior issues, or at least the perception of behavior issues from other educators. So she hadn't ever heard that she could be a teacher, she should be a teacher. And it was shocking for her. And unfortunately, later that year, she actually was expelled from the district for an offense that other students had committed, but had not been punished to that extent for. So she is the example that I think of when I think of the need for role models of all types, because the way that her actions and behavior was culturally interpreted by the entirely white staff of our district impacted how she saw herself and her future options. So no matter who you...
That is very sad to hear.
So I tried really hard to be a champion for her at every single turn that I could. But unfortunately, being an educator, being a teacher in the classroom, sometimes the decisions are above your head, which is fun. But so she's what I think of when I think of the need for representation of all types at all levels. So currently, your options tend to be limited by who you see in the field. So the more we can increase visibility of all types at all levels, the less that predetermination of options is going to be a variable. So I do think that girls need role models. I do think people of color need role models. I think, again, more diversity at all levels is never going to be a bad thing.
Regardless the language you speak, regardless the country you are being born in, everybody, or if you are a boy or a girl, everybody needs a role model to get ahead in life. Is this something that we can also find back on the website of CoderZ?
Absolutely.
These kind of stories and the information for these young people to feel supported, that they can look up to somebody or look into a particular direction that is of their interest?
Absolutely. As we started to talk about earlier, you asked me about barriers to bringing a more diverse approach to education into the classroom for mentors and educators. And I began to say, but I got off track. I began to say that it's confidence. It is a fear of you've always taught one way and this is how it's done. And so there is a lot of fear in that if I do it differently, will it have the same outcomes? Will it have the same results? And it's a very much so like you're uncomfortable with not filling that role as the all-knowing sage on the stage. So stepping back from that role into a facilitator role more so than a directive educator, it's scary and it can be very uncomfortable. So with CoderZ, diversity and equity is at the heart of the company. It started as an outreach arm of a robotics company that wanted to get robotics into more classrooms, but there are barriers to that access in terms of time, in terms of equipment, in terms of expense, as well as barriers of teachers being comfortable with robotics enough to step up and say, I will be the advisor for a robotics club. That's a very scary statement to someone who's never taught robotics before. So with CoderZ, the virtual platform gives you an option to implement robotics in your classroom without that fear. It's very supportive for teachers, and it makes it much more approachable for you to say, I'm going to do robotics in my classroom, because you have that very supportive organization. You can see on the website that there's a very wide variety of teachers and districts all throughout the country, all throughout the world, of all races and demographics, taking part in that robotics club. And that tells you that you as an educator, again, that mentorship and that representation of, oh, hey, there's a teacher that looks like me, or hey, here's an elementary school teacher who started a robotics club. I can do that too.
So you mentioned confidence. I can imagine that some teachers, are not educated in robotics. Does CoderZ is one of the goals of CoderZ also directing these teachers so that they can teach these kids in their classes the robotics, the coding behind it all?
Absolutely.
So it's also for
yes. Yeah, absolutely.
And I can learn this as well. I'm 48 at this moment, but can I also learn it? I have absolutely no idea how to code any program. I am lucky that I can press a button and that it's working. When it's not working, I panic. So, well, can I learn
you know what? You know what, Maria? Right now you are on the other side of the globe from me. I have never been to Germany. I have never been to your neck of the woods. We have only connected via zeros and ones. So coding led to us being able to speak to each other right now. And so if you can learn to operate Skype and make this connection with me, then you can learn coding via CoderZ.
That's simple.
That's simple.
I wish I could do that. That would be, I would write all my own programs and etc. God, that's going to be such a fun virtual world. Anyway, on the website, to stay with the website of CoderZ, Ready STEM Codes. What is this slogan standing for? Is this goal? What is this idea behind it? How did CoderZ started in the first place?
So as we said, CoderZ is an offshoot of Intelitech, a robotics company, and they had an outreach arm. They wanted to get robotics into more classrooms, but they were finding that districts couldn't afford it, didn't have the time, and also were very nervous about having a teacher who was well versed enough in robotics and comfortable enough to say, I will be the advisor for the robotics club. So as a result, they decided to create a platform in which students could code, and they would code a virtual robot. And that virtual robot would then execute their code. They could adjust their code, and they would continue until they got it right. And that really embodies that ready STEM code. STEM is an acronym for science, technology, engineering, and math. However, STEM's an approach. It's a framework. It's a way of thinking. I see a problem. I need to solve that problem. Here are my tools to solve that problem. I'm going to try it. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to try it again. So that ready STEM code is our on your marks, get set, go code for we have a problem, you have an obstacle, overcome it. If it didn't work, figure it out and do it again. And that is really at the heart of our technology. It's at the heart of our approach. It's at the heart of the content that I produce. Anyone can do STEM at any time, anywhere, with any equipment. We're just trying to make it easier.
Now I'm thinking STEAM, this little character in between this framework, this idea of STEM, the A, art, a way of emotional approaching technical problems. Do you think that is more into this idea for girls to do so, or is this also for boys to do so? Because if it's for girls to, well, insert this little character, the A in STEAM, then I would say, well, we need that. We need that kind of change.
I have an arts background. I went to performing arts schools growing up. I am on the board of an arts and culture nonprofit in my area. I embody the idea of interdisciplinarity, the idea that we shouldn't be siloing. It's the thought process, and that you shouldn't limit yourself to one or the other. So I feel very strongly that the STEAM as opposed to the STEM is almost a distractor. Again, I believe that STEM is a way of thinking. It's iterative design. And what are artists doing if not designing in an iterative format? They are trying something. If it doesn't work, they try it again. And they are doing this to accomplish a purpose. That is their artistic expression, expression of emotions and experience. So STEM is in art, whether or not people realize it. And the amount of technology that is used to create art is frankly amazing. There's so much science in art, be it the chemical composition of the colors and paints and materials, and how that material science lends the ability to convey something. This certain type of paint comes from ochre, which is a certain type of rock, which due to its refractive properties reflects that deep yellow color and absorbs the rest of the colors, which allows you to convey the feeling of sunshine on your face laying in a field after a big disappointment.
Personally, I think that this art idea should not be only focused on painting or crafts or etc., but more being focused on the idea of creative thinking. And if we are talking about coding, when young people are starting to code with this idea of creative thinking, of the ability of creative thinking, I think they can accomplish much more than there's already known in coding, don't you think?
Absolutely. I mean, we're starting to see the non-fungible products online where they are creating a uniquely coded visual that cannot be reproduced in any way. It can't be copied. It is a singularly unique piece. We're starting to see like there are artists who work pixel by pixel. So they are not separate. They are one and the same. You need one for the other. They're just using a different medium.
So what is the importance for young people to learn how to code? What is the importance for that? How can we benefit from that, from their brilliancy and into the future?
So coding, again, as we said, STEM is a way of knowing and understanding. Coding is a great opportunity to practice that iterative design and that mindset of I'm going to tackle a problem using the tools that I have, and I am then going to see if it worked, and if it didn't, I'm going to try again. And that mindset and process can be, again, applied in any situation. So part of the benefit of coding is the that mindset of I'm going to overcome an obstacle, and if I don't the first time, if I failed, I'm just going to try again. So that comfort with failure and seeing it as a learning experience as opposed to the end of your efforts is one of, I think, the biggest benefits of coding. You have a sandbox in which you can play, and out of that sandbox can come apps and art and other tools that can help people connect worldwide.
From your point of view, what is necessary to reduce this gap between boys and girls coding, or male and female scientists or future scientists? What is, from your point of view, necessary to reduce this gap?
I think part of the step forward for reducing that gap is, again, representation and role models at every level, visibility of all those role models. And the closer we can get to equitable representation of everyone at those levels, the better. I was reading something recently indicating that of women who graduate with a STEM degree, there is a significant percentage of them who choose not to pursue a career in tech. And a lot of it ties back to their experiences in the professional field. So, for example, the number of women who graduate with engineering degrees versus the number of women who actually go and then attain a job in the engineering field, there's like a 30% gap. So there's already a reduced number of women who pursue engineering degrees. And in addition to that, a lot of them decide not to actually become an engineer in the field after they graduate. And in interviews with these women, a lot of them decided not to because their experience in their co-op or their kind of internship before graduating was not a positive experience. They experienced a lot of disrespect. They were asked to do more menial jobs than their male counterparts. So they had less of a hand in engineering. They also experienced a lot of negative social experiences in the field from the male dominated upper peers that were there. So it's not just a matter of changing the role models, it's a matter of changing the culture too, to a culture of widespread respect and not accepting that. That is inexcusable, that we have brilliant women who have spent 4 to 5 years attaining a degree and have the option and have the potential to add so much to the field, but choose not to pursue that because of the social environment in which they experienced while they were in pursuit of that degree. That's a problem. And that is a problem that falls squarely on the institution itself. And I would honestly call on the engineering firms to take a deep look at that and find a way to fix it, be it through more positive programs, be it through a more structured establishment of what interns are expected to do and their list of tasks that they do, or matching them up with positive mentors, or sitting down their staff and saying, look, this behavior is not appropriate and is harming the field as a whole.
So what you are saying is that we should address the mentors, the teachers or peers more often, so that they can become aware of the fact that there is no difference in the intelligence of a boy or a girl or a male or a female. People's brains just absorb and process the same stuff, the same material, only slightly different. And I think it is not even a bad thing. I think it's a very good thing, because viewing things from a different angle, the same stuff for hundreds of years already, viewing that from a different angle is only leading to progress, to a scientific evolution, so
Absolutely.
that today's questions and problems in science can be solved perhaps even quickly, faster. Oh my God,
Hey,
my English so bad.
that's okay. You speak one more language than I do, so I speak like 1.5 of French, so we're fine.
Oh, you understand it. I understand.
Oh yeah, it's very fun. So I think that diversity of thought and experience at every level is only to the benefit of the field. I think about this often. I come from a high poverty background, so I grew up in a single parent home with abject poverty, and just a very, very low income. And sometimes my experiences and my perception of situations is very different because of that high poverty background. So in all levels of an organization, diversity of thought and experience is essential to addressing all needs. If you've never been hungry at night because you couldn't afford to buy food, you are not going to necessarily have that empathy for how someone may react in a situation where they are hungry and don't have food and need to do what they have to do in order to get it.
Right.
I remember an anecdote of someone being in a history class, and the lecturer was female, and she had an example up on the board of a stone with 28 marks on it. And it was stated that this was man's first attempt at a calendar. And the professor asked what man needs to mark 28 days, and proposed that it was a woman's first attempt at a calendar, because that makes more sense, that a woman would be keeping track of 28 days for your cycle. So again, that value of diversity in thought and perspective only adds to things. In terms of engineering, a female experience of the world can be very different. I mean, office temperatures are set to accommodate the comfort of a man wearing a three-piece suit. Women are often freezing in offices because the temperature is set too cold. So we have to dress differently. Sometimes, like, the height of seats is not comfortable for a woman's legs because it's too tall. So in terms of engineering, if you are designing products to work for everyone, then if you have a very narrow experience in who is designing your product, you're not designing for everyone, because that perspective is not on the team. I think about this in terms of shoes. Most major shoe companies, their standard forms that they use to build shoes are men's feet, even when they're the women's sizes.
Serious?
Yes.
Okay, that is something I didn't know.
Isn't it?
I've never heard from
fascinating. Nobody could take the time to ask
it
a
is a
woman.
moment that I'm saying, what?
Yeah, it's
I'm stunned by this one.
It's the silliest thing in the world. Nobody took a second to ask a woman to sit down so they could take a cast of her foot to make a basic form for women's shoes. Now, this might be different for smaller shoemakers or different countries, but the major shoemakers, their base forms for creating shoes are all men's feet. That's a problem.
Okay. I must say, again, I'm stunned by this information. I have really never heard about of this. This is going like, what? This is, okay, fine, what the heck ever. So, okay, now you silenced me right here. I'm completely off track. This is not, this can be possible. This
I
is
know.
silly.
So when we look at, when we look at the world and why do we need women on the team? Why do we need all voices at the table? It's because of little things like that. Your experience is going to be informed by your reality. And if that experience, that lived experience is viewed as less because of if you're a female or if you're of color, then you're harming untold numbers of populations. And that sucks. And it shouldn't be the case at all.
It's not even reality, according to me. It's not even reality. It is, I'm sorry to say so, to the whole world, this is beyond being silly, that if you are a woman or if you have a different skin color than being, well, finger quote, white, that you are not able to have a brain that is operative. I'm sorry to say so, but that is nonsense. That is absolutely nonsense. I have to regroup myself here for a sec. I will cut this out. Ashlynn, I see you told me in the beginning I am being squeezed between a couple of meetings and work and etc. So do you have any additional advice for young people and fresh students who like to study computer science or how to learn to code?
Just try it. Honestly, just try it. You never know what you're gonna like. You never know what you're not gonna like. Something that I would always tell my students is that it's your life to live, you know. It's going to be your lived experience, and the best thing you can do for yourself is just try stuff and see what you enjoy, see what you like. Never stop learning. No matter how old you are, stretch yourself, find something that you enjoy, and try and find a way to make money at it. That's my advice for people who like to study computer science and like coding, is you never know what you're actually going to enjoy. So you might as well try everything and see what sticks.
Science. Does it care about your gender or the country that you were born in? Straightforward, no, it does not. Personally, I think that we should not speak or think in terms of male and female brains, or which one is better in absorbing the mathematically logic of any scientific field. I think we should approach the different ways of processing information with, for instance, a comparison between a painting by Pablo Picasso or Vincent van Gogh, both respectable artists who saw the same world you and I are living in, but they expressed the information absorbed by their brains in a complete different manner. Ashlynn, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to talk with you. But before we close out, can you tell us where we can find more information on CoderZ and how for people to contact you?
You can find more information on CoderZ at gocoderz.com. Check out the blog. I run it, so it's amazing. And if people would like to contact me, they can reach out to me via Twitter at Ashlynn_SK. So ASHLYNN_SK.
Thank you all for tuning in this week on The Next Truth where science and myth meet. Make sure to visit our website www.nexttruth.com. That is nexttruth, all in one word.com. And let us know what you think about our podcast. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we would appreciate a rating on our website in the section The Next Truth Podcasts. Or if you would simply tell a friend about the show, that would help us too. I am Maria Anna van Driel with The Next Truth. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode.